Fly tipping has been steadily increasing in Bromsgrove, with rubbish appearing on country lanes almost weekly. To combat this, Councillor Adam Kent has launched a new community surveillance scheme to catch and prosecute fly tippers.
Who on earth wants to do something like that? I mean, I think you take a load of rubbish and you dump it in the ditch and you think that's acceptable. So it's absolutely beyond me that society's come to that level. So I suppose that's a slightly different problem, isn't it, really? Who is doing it and why are they doing it?
Yeah.
And I suppose that's the place to start, because why are they doing it? Well, I don't know if you're aware that commercially now we brought in this country a load of landfill taxes, which was to encourage recycling and the green economy and everything else as well. So I've seen some posts where people say, well, you've put the charges up for whatever. Well, we haven't. This is a landfill tax that was created as part of a green policy to try and encourage recycling. So in a sense, perhaps it doesn't quite work the way it should, because, you know, it's encouraging people to dump the stuff. And the reason is, if you want to hire a skip or anything else now, the charge has to reflect that landfill taxation. So it's commercially viable for people to drive around in a van, pick up rubbish off residents and then just go and tip it in the ditch, because they've saved their 80 or 90 quid a ton that they'd have to pay if they went and disposed of it properly. So it's commercial criminality, and it's split into several different sections. You've got the people that will come and pick. I mean, one particular resident is really angst about people leaving stuff outside their house, you know, because it does encourage fly tipping. It's technically, if you put something on the pavement, you're technically a fly tipper. You know, because you're saying it wants to be recycled. If you want to get it recycled, just advertise it on Facebook Marketplace, say it's free, and somebody will come and pick it up. But at least then they've taken it. You know, if you put it on the pavement, then it will probably, you are technically a fly tipper. And if it's something like a fridge or something like that, they'll take the bits they want and then dump the rest in the ditch, you know, because they can't get rid of the gas and the other things, because there's higher charges to get rid of it. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is tires. Tires, you now have to pay like a recycling charge, and that's an environmental charge. I think it's about a tenner a tire. So for an organization that's got a load of tires, they want to save money, and somebody comes along and says, I'll get rid of them for a £5 a tire. Yeah. Then the way they do it and the way they make it pay is by dumping it in the ditches. And that's a big problem as well. So, you know, you have got a number of people that will be, it's criminality basically. And then you've got the cannabis grows that are being dumped. And I cannot believe the scale of these. I mean, somebody knows where they're coming from, and somebody knows who's growing it. And somebody might say, oh, well, it's only soil. Yeah, but it's soil that's being used for a drug that's being sold illegally, probably by criminal gangs that's dragging kids into it and all sorts of other things as well. You know, your sort of county lines type problems. So there's many different areas of this and different problems of it, really. And the question is, how do we solve it? Well, we've got to catch them, but then catching them and finding them nothing is not commensurate with solving the problem. So if you're going to save, if you're going to tip a load of building refuse and save 200 quid, how many times are you going to get away with tipping it before you get caught? And then when you get caught, what are you going to get fined?
Yeah.
So if you get away with it for months and months, and then when you get caught, you get fined 250 quid. Well, it's less than it would have cost to tip it. So that's no good. But the fines have got to be harder and the penalties have got to be stronger. But invariably, the people, when they go to court, will say that they haven't got any money, they can't afford the fines. So they'll issue a low cost fine at a couple of quid a week, and they get away with it and they continue to do it. So that's a big problem. So how do we stop it? Well, residents have been absolutely brilliant. The best way, you can say you can have as many cameras as you want, and I'm going to put as many out there as I can. But observant residents driving down those lanes, instead of coming down the Ulster Road on the way home, come down Crabmill Lane. Do your bit. You know what I mean? Take a little shortcut. Go down the country road when you're coming home at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. You'll be surprised what you find. And we've got huge success in residents reporting the issue when they see them. And what do you do when you see them? Well, the first thing you got to do, get the registration number and the description of the people and what it is they're dumping. But don't put yourself at risk, because these people can be violent. So I know loads of people have approached them and had conversations with them, and it's very brave and it's admirable, but really, to be honest, take great care and then report it straight away. And the problem you've got with fly tipping is it's technically the responsibility of the council, not the police. So if you phone the police up at 1 o'clock in the morning and say somebody's fly tipping, they'll just go, well, can you phone the council? And the problem is the council hasn't got somebody there at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Mm.
And that's your difficulty, really. And that's why we're looking to roll all the cameras out that we've got. So that's why I've started this camera scheme. So, and that in itself is going to be very interesting because I've gone out to the community. There's two issues that we've got. For a council to put cameras out, you know what GDPR is like, I presume, as a journalist. And you know the health and safety regulations and all the other stuff. There are more barriers put in the way of stopping crime by bureaucracy and red tape than you could ever imagine. And when you get down to the dotting the I's and crossing the T's, you can't believe how difficult it is to put a camera on a highway.
Yeah.
You know, well, what about the rights of the person? Well, what about if they steal the camera and they can look at the footage of somebody that's illegally dumped fly tipping stuff? I mean, honestly, it's like hands are tied behind your back. So Bromsgrove are doing great work in terms of getting out new cameras that are compliant. But what we want to do with this community scheme is get a lot more out there for private landowners, people who've got gardens that are being targeted for fly tipping. So if anybody out there has a site that has had stuff fly tipped on before, and they've got a position where we could mount a camera that is still looking at their private land, so not on the highway, but looking at that lay-by or fence or whatever else, then we want to hear from you because we'll have a camera that you can borrow that we can put on it. What we're doing is using very clever technology. So the cameras have got solar panels on them. They're linked into 4G or 5G, and they've got activation. So as soon as you get a response, we will know. And what we're doing is building up a voluntary network of volunteers who can respond to those activations, volunteers who can help put the cameras up, and then we need businesses and donors to help fund it. Yeah. And already I've received the money thanks to some local businesses. Oakland International have made a big donation, enough to buy 19 cameras.
Wow.
Yeah, 19. And they're all going to have cards in, but we've got to maintain them. And each one costs like £5 a month to be hooked into the cellular network. But then that gives us access to that camera. And from March, the power of the sun is enough to keep them, so you don't need the batteries changing. So I don't need any cable connections. I don't need anything to be able to put these in. So I think, and Bromsgrove Council have agreed that subject to us submitting the footage in the proper way, they'll carry out the prosecutions. So it's actually easier. If you imagine you're on your phone and you recorded a fly tipper, that is prosecutable evidence. You can give a statement, you can submit that footage, and then we can prosecute. So that's what we want to try and do with this.
Right, that's great. Have you had any? How long has the camera's been set up?
Yeah. No. We just launched it last week. We're just buying them all now. Obviously, you've probably seen the footage that went over the national media of the cannabis dealer that I caught fly tipping on a gate right under a sign that said CCTV recording. I mean, I think the headline was "Dopey fly tipper caught on camera" or something. But I mean, how mad are they? And then the power of social media was great. I mean, we'll be releasing this footage on social media as well if we get it. I'll be putting it out there and saying, do you know this guy? Because why shouldn't we? I mean, these are criminals. If they're going to come back and bleat to me about the fact that their face is on Facebook or on social media, well, they shouldn't have done it in the first place, should they? But that guy, we put it out on social media, and obviously he somebody must have told him his face was had gone live, and he came back the following day to recover the cannabis grow, and I caught him walking down the road with it. Yeah, and got his registration number. So, which I didn't have to start with. So the power of the internet, the power of the residents, and the power of the community, I think, is what will solve this. We can't expect the police to be manning every country lane in conjunction with the council every night to try and catch some lowlife that is going to dump this stuff in the ditches. And no, it's been brilliant. I've got other councils phoning me up already who are interested in it. We haven't even got the scheme underway yet. But what I do need is volunteers. I've had somebody come forward who's got a cherry picker, which is brilliant because it means you can safely put them up. Because otherwise you could imagine the health and safety with balancing on a ladder. So it's looking great really, but it's going to be down to the community. So if anybody's interested in getting involved or helping, we're going to need people that can monitor the footage. Yeah. So you just look at it on a phone, it pings on the phone, you have a look straight away, dial into the camera and see what's going on. And we're going to have to build a complete new system to do it. But it's very, very exciting. And I'm hoping it solves the problem.